Dr. Atkins' new revolutionary diet. Righto, I said, I'll look at it. Do you know, I couldn't put it down. It's a fascinating book. His research and his story is very interesting. I went out that day and I bought his book. And this is his story, Dr. Atkins. He said he was a GP, late 40s, putting on a bit of excess weight. He knew his science. He knew that carbohydrates stored as fat. So he decided to do an experiment on himself. He decided to stop all carbohydrates. And he theorised that if he stopped all carbohydrates, his body would start to live on his fat stores. So what did he eat? He chose foods that had no carbohydrate. So his diet was high in protein, meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs, that's a lot of protein. Fat, meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs, that's a lot. But something else surprised me that you never hear about. He ate 3 cups of vegetables a day, and 1 cup had to be greens. And so there was the fibre. The weight just fell off him. He theorised right. He wasn't giving carbohydrates to his body, so, well, hardly any, a little bit in the vegetables. So his body started to live on his fat stores. The weight started to drop off him. He was never hungry because these are the 3 foods that give the feeling of satiation, satisfaction. He had lots of energy because your liver can convert protein and fat to glucose if it needs it, and it can break down your fat stores to give you glucose. It's called gluconeogenesis, creating glucose from the fat stores. Has he found the perfect diet? Never hungry, lots of energy, weight's falling off him. So he started to put some of his patients on this. It is estimated that 11 million people were helped by his diet. His book was number 1 on the New York Times best-selling book list 4 years running. This guy demands some attention. But the problem is that after a while, some of his patients were developing arthritis because this is a high-acid food. In fact, I had a man come to me wanting a consultation when I was in New York a few years ago. He said, I used to be one of Dr. Atkins' patients. He said, I'm a vegetarian, I'm an Adventist, but I was getting overweight, I was getting diabetes, heart disease, so I went to Dr. Atkins because he's a very famous doctor. And Dr. Atkins, he said, was a very gracious man. He said, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to stop this high carbohydrate diet. So he said, I started eating meat. I didn't eat a lot. I had a lot of vegetables. He said, I didn't get diabetes. He said, my heart problems all resolved. He said, the weight dropped. But he said, I'm getting arthritis. And he said, you are the first nutritionist that hasn't totally slammed Atkins. I'm interested. I said, well, Atkins' theory was correct. It's what I have shown you today. But what you can do superior to Atkins. You can do the plant proteins. You can do the plant fats. Dr. Atkins, on his first stage, he got people down to 20 grams of starch, carbohydrates a day. Do you know there's no need to go that low? All you need to do is greatly reduce the carbohydrates, ideally stop the wheat, eat more vegetables, eat more legumes, nuts and seeds, and you can get a similar result. Because of the results that he was getting, and by the way, his cancer patients were going into remission, people with high cholesterol were coming back to normal. Did everyone hear that? And his patients were eating meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. And what are people told to get their cholesterol levels down? They've got to stop the meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. So Atkins threw a spanner in the nutrition world's wheel, and it needed the spanner thrown into that wheel. And the only reason his patients got away with it for so long is the 3 cups of vegetables a day, which have an alkalizing effect. But the beauty of the plant proteins, it's much cleaner burning fuel. It doesn't leave an acid waste like the protein does. And when I was consulting with this man, he said to me, I believe if Dr. Atkins had read the China study, Atkins would have become a vegetarian. What an interesting comment. So you can get those results, but you can do it on a plant diet, as long as you do the legumes. And so many people say, oh, legumes, you've got to soak them, you've got to cook them. Well, when you go home tonight, just fill up the saucepan and fill it up with lentils. In the morning, rinse it well, bring it to the boil, rinse it again, put it in your slow cooker. There's lots of shortcuts. Or soak a whole lot, rinse heaps of them and then put them in snap lock bags in the freezer. Then you just pull it out, cook them. There's lots of shortcuts. And you can get organic beans in tins. Just make sure you bring them to the boil and rinse them very well. So it's easy, it need not be difficult. You see, animal protein, it burns at, so let's look at protein. Animal protein, only 58% is burnt as fuel. So that's a 42% waste. That's the acid waste. And that's what Dr. Colin Campbell found in his book, The China Study. He could switch cancer cells on and off, and we looked at this briefly when we looked at cancer on the first night, because it's an acid waste, and cancer thrives in an acid environment. We looked at that. Whereas plant protein, it's a lot cleaner burning fuel. It doesn't have that acid waste. So with plant protein, you're getting up to about 80% easy is burnt as fuel. That's a big difference. So your plant protein is a superior protein. What Atkins found, and I found this interesting, he found that these 3 food groups are the essential food groups.